Okay, hey guys, it's Wednesday night. It's live night here in Lavish Land. And I'm really pumped to talk to you guys tonight because I have something really important actually that I want to talk about, and I think it's something that a lot of you might need to hear. It's something that I've needed to hear in my life too, and still need to hear every now and then. And it's something my clients have needed to hear lately, and so I just thought that it was going to be a really good thing to talk about tonight on this forum. So we're going to talk about the scale tonight, and I honestly think that this is really vital to listen to right now if you're having, anxiety about the scale, if you're having issues about the scale and all of those things. So we're going to talk about the scale and what I think is important and what I don't think is important when it comes to fat loss and when it comes to all of this stuff. So I am just quickly sharing this through my communities here. I have a great free community on Facebook called the Lavish Method Faster Fat Loss Free Community, and so if you don't belong to it, you should. It's great. We do lots of recipes and Q&A and stuff like that in there, and I'm just gonna post this video into that. If you're on, if you can see me, if you can hear me, all the good things, hit the little thumbs up, hit the heart, tell me you can see me and hear me so that I know everything's working from my end, because that would be awesome. Oh, Kathy says, hey Laura. Hey Kathy. All right, so I'm assuming you can see and you can hear me. Desiree says, hi, amazing. Okay, so we're just quickly sharing out, then we're gonna get started, and we're going to talk about the scale tonight because I think it's a timely conversation, and I'll tell you guys why in a minute, but I think it's gonna be really good. So we are shared out. It's 8:01, which is awesome. I'm like right on time here. So let's just hit the post. We're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna set that down. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on comments. Sometimes I see them, sometimes I don't, you never know. So let's get going. Cheers, guys. It's Wednesday. It's Facebook Live night, as I said, here in Lavish Land. So thanks for joining me, whether you're live or whether you're on the replay. I have got my favorite wine again. This is Cupcake wine. It's a 2 grams of sugar per liter wine. It's effing delicious, and I'm enjoying this as my little cocktail tonight. So Andrea says, hey Andrea. All right, so let's get right to business. If you are new to me, if you are new to this page or to my groups, I'm Laura. It's so nice to meet you. I am a mom of 2. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I am the founder of the Lavish Method, where I teach women who just want to lose weight a simple way of eating that doesn't involve giving up wine or chocolate, because those are my 2 favorite things. And so this might sound kind of funny. This is a really important conversation, and I actually sent out an email to everybody who's on my email list this morning about this. So if you're on my list, you might have already heard a little bit about this from me. But I said something to the effect of why I don't say weight loss anymore, why I no longer talk about weight loss, why I don't even want to hear the terms weight loss. And that was a little bit of like a shock tactic, and it's a little bit less extreme than that. But I will tell you something, and I had never really thought about it in these terms before, but much like everything in life, I feel as though, we're pushed to certain things for a reason. And so, most of us, we believe, I'm not going to get into religion or beliefs or anything like that, but I think most of us believe in some sort of a higher energy, whether we call that the universe or God or whatever the case may be. But what I'm getting at in a roundabout way is that I think things happen for a reason, and I think people come into your life for a reason. And so in the past month or so, I've had a lot of clients who have become very I don't want to say obsessed, but very tied in with the scale. And they're very fixated on the scale. And if the scale isn't moving in the right direction, they're frustrated and they're not happy. And if it's not moving fast enough, they're frustrated and they're unhappy. And it's funny, so I've had this kind of going on the back burner, which is kind of brought my attention there. And then today I ran into a client who used to very much be like this. Kathy says, made me chuckle. I'm not even talking about you, Kathy. So I ran into a client today who used to be really fixated on hitting a certain point on the scale. And getting to this point, she was very, she'd get very disheartened and very frustrated when it just wasn't happening. And so when I saw her today, she said, you know what, it's funny, we've talked about this so many times, blah, blah, blah. And I'm finally over it. I don't care anymore. And we had this great conversation. And I said, you know, it's so funny because all of this has happened in the span of like the last 4 weeks. And so before this, I would always say I help women with weight loss. You know, I do weight loss, I do all these things. And I think that that is really false. So I want to talk a little bit about body composition tonight. I'm not going to talk about facts. I don't want to get into like a whole fact thing. I just want to talk about just the general, the high-arcing things that go along with body composition, and then why the scale is not accurate and why, you know, we're fixating on something that's not even a good representation of what's actually going on under the clothes. So when we think about our bodies, so I'm just going to talk in very, very general terms right now. So when we think about our bodies, you know, we don't really think about the percentage of our body that is fat and the percentage of our body that is water and the percentage of our body that is, you know, bones and organs and all the things. But if we stop and we really think about it, okay, let's think about the percentage of our body that's fat. So an average healthy body fat for an average aged woman, and again, there's so much variation here, so we're just talking very generally here, but say an average healthy body fat would be like 22, 23, 24%, somewhere in there, okay? So on a, let's do easy math because it's the end of the day and I don't really want to do complicated math and embarrass myself on here without a calculator, but say on 100-pound human, obviously we're not 100-pound humans, that's not the point. The point is 24% of 100 is 24, so it's really easy. So let's pretend that humans weigh 100 pounds, that adult women weigh 100 pounds, right? And so a 24% body fat would only be 24 pounds. So of that whole 100-pound woman, right, 24 of those pounds is body fat, right? The entire rest of the body composition of that woman is everything else. It's bones, it's muscles, it's organs, it's fluid, right? It's water, it's all of these other things. And so if you think about that, when we are talking about being overweight, when we are talking about needing to lose fat, see I said it, I'm really getting away from saying lose weight even when I'm trying to. So when we say lose weight, right? What we're talking about is that those 24 pounds of actual fat cells. We're not talking about the vast majority of what's actually going on in your body. And when it comes down to it, we actually want to increase a lot of those things. So, you know, a good example is bones. Thicker, denser bones are healthier. We want to improve the quality of our bones as we age, right? We don't want our bones to weigh less because it means they're brittle and, you know, they're more prone to breaking, which is not a good thing. We want more lean muscle. You know, women they're always afraid of bulking out, and that's not something you need to be afraid of for the average woman, right? But muscle drives metabolism, right? Like our muscles literally are metabolically active tissue, which means when we're just sitting here existing, hanging out, muscles are burning energy, right? They're burning calories. Fat cells are not, and that's really important. Wine break. And so when it comes down to it, you know, we want to have more muscle mass. We want the muscle part of our body to weigh more. We don't want our heart or our other organs to weigh less, right? That's not where we want to lose. So when we're talking about losing weight, we are talking very, 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 very specifically of that percentage of our body that is fat. And so you can see, I think already where I'm going here is that when we step on a scale, and that scale is measuring all of the components of your body, right? It's measuring your fat, yes, but it's also measuring your bones. It's also measuring your muscles. It's measuring your organs. It's measuring your brain. It's measuring the fluid that's within your body. It's measuring the water, the urine that's in your bladder that's waiting to be excreted, right? So when we talk about weight loss, like when we talk about the scale and relying on that to tell us the story of what's actually happening with the fat, which is actually what we want to lose, it's so wildly off. Like it so does not tell you the picture of what's going on within your body, like at all. And so you can buy these fancy scales that have, you know, fat percentage meter on it, basically, right? It sends little impulses through your body and it gives you a reading on body fat percentage. So now people are all doing that. And I've had one of those in my practice and it can give you an idea of what's going on. But here's the thing, those scales have an average error rate of 10 to 12%, When we're talking body fat, when we're talking, a body fat that's maybe 20% to begin with, 10 to 15, 10 to 12% error is insane. Like, it's totally outrageous. It doesn't give us a clear picture whatsoever, right? So, those scales, well, they may make us feel good because we can track what's happening. They're so not accurate. And so they are not even an accurate representation of what's going on within your body. And so I think it's just really important that we as women, we kind of look at that big picture. So when we're aiming for fat loss, which is totally okay to do, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to lose fat, with wanting to lean out, with wanting to look and feel your best. But when that manifests itself with an obsession of a number, which is completely arbitrary, it's an arbitrary number that factors in a whole host of things you have no control over. And when you measure your success based on that arbitrary number, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Like, it's not a healthy thing. And so I really want to get away from the scale. And so personally, in my practice, when I work with private clients, it's something I'm completely doing away with from now on. I'm not doing scales anymore because I really don't think that it's accurate, and I don't think that it's realistic, and I don't think we should measure our success based on what's going on an arbitrary number that is not even showing you what's actually happening with fat. Right? Do you guys get that? I hope that makes sense, because it was something I never even really thought of. And so when it's been coming kind of up so often in the past month, and I started really looking at it, you guys, it was one of those moments where the light bulb goes off and you're like, why do we even use that as a unit of measurement? Like, that's insane. So obviously, I'm a scientist at heart. You need to track. You need to know what's going on in your body. I get that. I am not a person who can just say, I feel better. I feel lighter. And I get that. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do. I'm saying you need to pick other ways to track what's going on. So the best way, the way that I would like you guys to track what's going on with your bodies, if we're not working together, is to go out, if you don't have one, go to Fabricland, buy a fabric measuring tape that costs like $1. Use that to track what's going on within your body, because that measuring tape, when you measure your waist, when you measure your hips, when you measure your arms, when you measure your legs, right? Pick 5 different spots on your body that you're gonna measure in the same spot, every 2 weeks. Do that. Track what happens there, because if you're actually losing fat, those numbers are gonna go down, right? Because fat is very fluffy and airy, and it takes up a lot of space, right? So as the fat cells shrink down, as you do lose fat and not weight, as you lose fat, that is going to be reflected in those measuring tape numbers, right? That is where it's going to tell you if you've been successful, right? And if at the same time that you're losing fat, you're also training, you're strength training, you're trying to increase lean muscle mass, then your weight may not change all that much. And that's totally fine, because your weight means effing nothing, right? It's a number. It's an arbitrary number on a scale. What matters is your body composition. What matters is how much actual body fat you have on your body at any given time, right? And there are fancier ways to measure that too. I have a system called the Sculpt, and I use it with my clients in office. And it's a great model. It's basically a little handheld device that we can put at different points in the body, and it measures muscle quality and fat percentage, and it's accurate within 1 to 2%. So again, it's not perfect, but it's within 1 to 2%. So that gives us a good jumping off point to see what's actually happening. And it's not, I don't even think it's necessary. It's expensive. And if you're just doing it for yourself, I don't think it's necessary. So I wouldn't even suggest that you go out and buy one. What I would suggest you do is you go out and you buy that fabric measuring tape and you throw out your scale. I'm throwing out our scale. No longer am I going to use that scale in office. And that's just a stand that I'm going to take from now on out. And I hope that listening to this, you guys are getting that same kind of light bulb moment, right? That moment where you go, like, yes, that doesn't make sense. For example, if you weigh yourself, at 7 a.m. and you weigh yourself again at 10 a.m., there can be a difference of a couple of pounds, and it's totally arbitrary, and it's due to fluid balance within your body, right? which is completely ridiculous. I know this because it's happened to me. When I was using a scale with my in-office clients, I would calibrate that scale. So I would actually calibrate it in between each client just to make sure it was properly working properly. It would give us the best possible weight. And so I would see my own weight fluctuate literally by a couple of pounds within a day. Not really eating a whole heck of a lot, having coffees and water here and there. But if I was, undergoing a weight loss program, if my goal was weight loss and I was working so hard and I was, really trying to eat the foods that made sense with my body and doing all the things, and I had to watch that go up and down on the daily, like how disheartening is that? So I just think that I know it's hard. I know it's really, really difficult. And I know that, you might be watching this either live or on the replay and you might be saying, that's great, Laura, I love it. I'm not throwing out my scale. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. Maybe you're not ready yet. If you're not ready yet, maybe you stop weighing yourself, like every day. Maybe we could weigh ourselves, sorry, I'm just checking for comments. Maybe we could weigh ourselves once a week, and then wean down from there. But I think the point of the matter is you just need to understand that body composition matters, that fat percentage matters. You need to understand that things like muscle mass, things like bone mass, we actually want to maximize an increase. So Kathy says, I can see what you're saying, but in the outside world, the scale is what things are based on. Right. The doctor decides on surgery based on weight, doesn't care about measurements. Medications can be based on weight. Yes, totally. And in medical purposes, so I'm not talking medical purposes. I'm talking, you have decided you want to weigh X amount. Like I will very often, so I'll give you a good example, very often have a client who comes in and they're not overweight by a lot. They may be, they want to lose maybe 10 or 15 pounds. And so they've decided that they want to weigh 132 pounds or 135 pounds. And that is the goal, right? And so maybe they come to see me and they're at 150 pounds, right? And so they see all of this progress and they feel amazing and their clothes start fitting better and they're buying clothes in a smaller size, but they're not happy because they're 138 pounds. Even though everything is going well, they're 138 pounds. So I think you can kind of get the point of what I'm going to. If things are moving in the right direction, the scale doesn't matter. The scale is not an accurate description of what's going on in your body. Now, if you have a lot of weight to lose, obviously you have a greater percentage of body fat. So as body fat percentage goes up, the scale is going to be more accurate. So say, you're a candidate for bariatric surgery, right? You have a lot of weight to lose and maybe your body fat's up around 50%. Well, in that case, the scale is going to be a more accurate representation, right? Because in that case, 50% of what you're measuring, what you're weighing is that body fat. And so as you kind of get further up on the continuum of weight to lose, you might want to pay a little bit more attention. But in those cases, you're going to have an easier time moving the needle most of the time at the beginning, and you're not really going to be squabbling over a few pounds. So my concern is the people who are getting close to where they should be, who are moving in the right direction, and who are frustrated with themselves and who feel like they're not making progress because of a number on the scale, right? So it's not for the medical stuff. Obviously, when we're talking about medications, that's an entirely different thing. But generally speaking, you don't have to weigh yourself at home before taking a medication, right? That's something done in a doctor's office. I'm talking about at home. The scale does not need to have a place in your home, in my opinion. It shouldn't. It shouldn't have a place in your home. The scale, unless there's a medical reason for it, right? So whenever, and I think this doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it now anyway. So whenever I'm talking about anything on here, I'm talking about through the lens of fat loss on an average healthy person. I'm not talking about somebody who's being measured out for medication or somebody, who's in the doctor's office doing something different. I'm talking about real life, real women, and our real obsession with the scale, because I have my entire life measured progress and how fit I am and how healthy I am by the scale. And, as I look to that, I can honestly say, I haven't measured myself in quite a long time. I don't know what I weigh, and I'm totally okay with that. My clothes fit. I feel great. That's enough. That's enough for me. So if you have any questions about that, then I'm happy to answer them. But I think this was more of, this is not really something that I wanted to teach tonight. This wasn't something that I need you to learn. It was more just something that, like a PSA of sorts. Like, I just feel like it's so important to really just think about it, because as Kathy says in her comment, you know, we're trained, we're programmed to need that number. Why? Right? Why are we programmed to need that number? What does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that, you know, your weight has gone up or down, but is that body fat? Is that fluid? Is that blood volume? Is that bone mass? Is that muscle? Like, are you losing muscle? Because that's a very real thing too. So the other part of relying on the scale is that we celebrate victories that are actually huge defeats. And a lot of people who have gone on, you know, the calorie restricted diets where they eat less and exercise more, they see the scale move, right? And they get so excited, and the scale's moving really well for a time. And what's actually happening a lot of the time, especially if they're eating way less than they need and they're working out really, really heavily, a lot of the time what's happening is you're actually losing muscle mass. You're not losing fat. Your body's actually holding on to those fat stores, right? Because it needs them. But what's happening instead is that when you exercise, right, when you're working out really heavily, your muscles are going through a state of being torn and needing repair. And so if you're not giving your body the main things it needs to repair them after your workout, then instead of repairing and then building and increasing muscle mass, which is what happens in those cases, what's happening instead is that your muscles are actually being broken down. And so you're not losing fat, you're losing muscle, which over the course of the long term, right, is horrible, because muscle, as I said, muscle drives metabolism, and we need that muscle. So Tori says, I'm curious on your views on probiotics and weight connection. Yes, I don't know if it's new and interesting. There's a huge connection between weight and bacteria in our guts. So this is a great conversation that's going on right now, and I think it's a really important conversation because there's so much new science coming out all the time. There's so much that we don't know when it comes to bacteria and our bodies, but there's some really great studies, you know, out there that show that the propensity towards being obese is connected, it's correlated with the bacteria species that are colonizing within our gut. So certain bacteria, for example, people who tend to eat a very processed diet have a very different bacterial makeup, that's not the right word, but they have a very different bacterial makeup of their guts than people who say eat a paleo diet, or people who eat a vegan diet even have a different makeup. And so the food we eat very greatly affects that microbiome in there, as does a whole host of other things, but different microbiomes have different connections towards influencing the hormones that tell you whether to store or burn fat. So that's a whole other can of worms. It's super interesting, but I think the best thing we have right now is that we know that paying attention and trying to cultivate a good bacterial ecosystem works in our favor. So fermented foods, Bubby's sauerkraut is one of my favorites. You can get that one at Kelsey's downtown Peterborough. If you're not in Peterborough, wherever you are, health food stores sell that. It's a natural fermented sauerkraut. It's amazing. Kimchi is another natural ferment. Those are my two favorite go-to fermented foods. But you can also take probiotics. A good quality probiotic can be huge in terms of fat loss. Absolutely. And I've had clients who, once they add in a probiotic, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, definitely. Definitely. Anything else? I'm not seeing any other questions. Is there anything else coming up for you guys? I know this was kind of, like I said, it wasn't really something that I'm anticipating questions on as much as I just really felt like I wanted to share this with you guys. Doris says, nom nom nom. Thank you. Yeah, right? Probiotic food. Amazing. I mean, technically wine's a ferment, right? Anyways, okay, so if there's no questions, and I'm just going to make sure there's none over here. I don't see any. But if there's no questions, we're going to wrap this up. I really, really hope that if you've been obsessing over the scale, I really, really hope that this has just been a little bit eye-opening. Like I said, if you're not ready to do away with it entirely yet, that's cool. Even planting those seeds of doubt that, maybe what you're seeing on there. So next time you step on that scale, if you so choose to, next time you step on there and it isn't what you want to see, maybe you'll remember this conversation, and maybe it will be enough so that you don't feel that disappointment and you don't feel like you failed and you don't feel like it's all been for nothing, because maybe it has nothing to do with the fat that you're actually trying to lose. So 2 things, let's not say weight loss anymore, because we don't want to lose muscle. We don't want to lose bone, right? We want to stay hydrated. So let's say fat loss. I'm going to make that pledge. I am going to do my best to say fat loss instead of weight loss from now on. If you catch me saying weight loss, please call me out, because I think it's really important, and I think words mean something, and I think it's important to use the right word. So let's use that word. Let's talk fat loss. And I am making this pledge right now. I am getting rid of the scale. I'm going to set the example that I want to, which is no scale. So I am not going to get on a scale. I'm not going to use a scale with my clients anymore, starting at this very moment. And, I hope that inspires you guys maybe to take a little bit of action too, and to really focus on what's important and stop just arbitrarily caring about the things that, we've been taught to care about, which at the end of the day, we know don't even matter. So that's it. On that note, cheers, you guys. I hope that you have a fantastic Wednesday. I hope this has been valuable for you. If you have questions, as always, if you're on the replay, feel free to post them in the comment thread. I always make sure I come back and read comments and answer them if applicable. You can always hop on into my free community, the Lavish Method Faster Fat Loss free community, and you can type questions in there as well. So that is it for me for tonight. Thank you guys all for hanging out and for listening to my little tirade. And like I said, I hope it helped. All right, that's it.